Hi guys, my name is Mackenzie and today I'm going to share with you my grammar activity. Okay, so my activity I chose to do for this homework was types of questions. And the types of questions I'd like to focus on are WH questions and yes/no questions. And then this lesson was designed for third grade, but it also can depend on your students' needs and where they're at with their academic level as well. So the lesson plan instructions are pretty clear. These are for the teacher to have for herself. First off, you're going to write on the board the goal of the day for the students to accomplish. This is efficient, so when students come in, they know what to expect and they know what they will be learning about during the day. And then you're going to want to introduce students to the subject of WH questions and yes/no questions. After that, you will give examples of each after defining to the students what they are. You want to make sure the students have a clear understanding of what the questions are before you go and give examples of each of them. However, giving them examples will also help them understand what they are as well. Then you're going to let students practice in groups. This will allow them to be able to speak, write, and listen as a group together. Although you're going to want to put them in groups yourself just so you know who will work best together. After the students have had some time to go over the questions on the board, you're going to go over the answers as a whole class. As you're doing this, you want to make sure you give your students an opportunity to answer the questions. And if they're wrong, you want to explain why the answer is wrong. And then if they're right, why the answer is right. After that, you're going to test students over new information learned. But before you test students, you also want to make sure that students have a clear understanding that there aren't any questions. So let me move this. For the lesson goal, this is what you want to have on the board for the students to see visually when they come in. Students will be able to recognize what types of questions are given. Students will be able to identify and give examples of WH questions. Students will be able to identify yes/no questions and give examples. And then students will work together to reach this goal. This on the board will give the students an idea of what they will be doing during class, and then what they need to focus on themselves. So what are WH questions? WH words hold a position, and WH questions include words like who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. Most WH questions start with WH, however, some don't start with WH, for example, how. WH word meanings. So each word can have a meaning that can relate with the context in the word or in the sentence. So for who, it would be people. For what, it would be things. For when, it would be time. For where, it would be place. For the reason, it would be why. And then how would be manner. And then the information I found here was from our Unit 6 class PowerPoints. We learned about this in our class as well. So I think it's important to teach our students it as well. WH question examples. Some examples of WH questions include, who left their coat on the rack? What would you like for dinner? Why is the sky blue? When is the basketball game? Where is my other shoe? How much is a cookie? Which class is your favorite? All of these are examples of WH questions that you want to be able to show your students and read to them as well, so they can visually see it and they can hear them as well being said out loud. Next, we're going to talk about yes/no questions. So starting off, what are yes/no questions? For yes/no questions, these are questions asked that can be answered with a yes or no. It seems pretty simple, but you want to make sure you make it really clear to your students, just to avoid confusion. You need an auxiliary verb, a verb used in forming tense, moods, and voices provided in the question. And then information from this slide also came from our Unit 6 class PowerPoints. Yes/no question examples. Do you want to go outside? Have you ate today? Do you have a brother? Is it raining? Does she want to come? Were you at school? Are we leaving soon? Aren't we getting ice cream? Isn't it cold in here? Have you been here all day? Has the baby had a nap? As you're reading over these questions, make sure your students recognize that none of these questions start with a WH word. Next, you're going to want to leave time for your students to ask any questions they may have over the information they just took in. So here you'd sit down and be like, okay, class, do we have any questions? And then answer their questions, allow them more time to think, and just be sure that you had clarified the lesson and that there aren't any questions. Next, you're going to want to put your students into groups. So for group work, depending on the number of students, break them into small groups. For here, I was thinking maybe 4 to 5 students per group, but it also depends on how many students are in the class. For example, if there are 20 students in class, you can put them in 5 groups of 4. You don't want to make sure the groups are too big because then each student won't have time to focus on the questions as well, but you don't want to make this group too small where they're just talking the whole time. Next, you're going to write on the board examples of both questions and allow the students about 10 minutes to answer what types of questions are on the board. If students need more time, feel free to give them more time. However, if you notice that there's more chit chat going on than there is work, then the students might be done. So ask them if they need more time or if they're ready to go over the answers, just so time is being used efficiently during class. And then as students are working, walk around the class and check on groups. While doing this, you're going to want to go up to groups and ask them if they have any questions or listen to their conversations. If you see an error, maybe ask the student why they chose that answer, just to get a better understanding of what the student's thinking. And then as you're going over as a class, you should focus on what the student did wrong and make sure the students as a whole know not to do that, because if one student's making that mistake, others might as well. And then tell students to work as a team and figure out what types of questions are on the board. So for students, the direction should be pretty clear, just telling them to answer what types of questions are given on the board as to what kind of questions they are. Next is group work to students. So you're going to give them some questions. It doesn't exactly have to be these ones. I just try to make it even with 5 and 5, 5 yes, no's, and then 5 WH questions. So some questions you could use are questions like, what is your middle name? And that would be a WH question. Do you like apples? Yes or no question. Should we go to the park? Yes or no question. Who is the person in the hallway? That's a WH question. Have you gone out of state? Yes, no question. Why is it snowing? That's a WH question. Were you on the bus this morning? That is a yes, no question. Which character is your favorite? Is a WH question. When are we eating cake? Is a WH question. And is your shirt blue? Is a yes or no question. Next part of the lesson is going over the answers to the questions. You'd want to start this off with, okay, class, let's bring it back together. And then ask them how they felt the activity was. Was it hard? Was it easy? What made it easy? What made it hard? And then go from what did you get for question number 1? If students feel comfortable answering, let them raise their hand and answer. So the first question was, what is your middle name? And then that was a WH question, as we just talked about on the slide before this. But these are the answers you want to go through with the whole class. And then if they got one wrong, for example, do you like apples? If they said that was a WH question, you want to explain to them why that's a yes or no question. And that would be because there's no subject you're focusing on. You're just answering if you like apples or not. But you want to make sure that all students understand these questions. And if they got them wrong, explain to them why it was wrong and why the other answer is correct. Next is time for a comprehension test. This is effective because you want to make sure your students are fully understanding the work and not just choosing the answers their classmates chose. so you can quiz them more on their individual understandings. So you want to pass out the exit ticket to students and allow them about 10 minutes to complete the small learning comprehension quiz. If they finish early, they can just sit and wait for class to be over, maybe do some like independent reading time or work on other assignments, or maybe color a picture or something. And then for the exit ticket I designed, they'd put their name on it, and then the out of 5 is how many they would get if they got them all right. Each question is worth half a point. And then once students have completed them during like this quiet time, they turn them in and then the day would be over. So that brings us to this slide. Class day is over. It's time to go home. And then I would like to thank you guys all for taking time out of your day to listen to my lesson plan on teaching third graders different types of questions. And the sources I used during this lesson came from our Unit 6 class PowerPoints. And lastly, have a great day. And thank you for watching.